All right, let's dive into one of humanity's oldest, and you could argue, most powerful ideas, magic. It's this incredible force that shaped entire civilizations, sparked both absolute terror and unbelievable hope, and it continues to fascinate us today. From spells scratched onto cave walls to the wizards on our TV screens, we're going to trace the wild history of this powerful and often very dangerous concept.
And you know, this isn't some new obsession. This quote right here is from the Roman scholar Pliny the Elder, almost 2,000 years ago. It just goes to show how deeply magic is woven into the human story. He saw it as this force that gets a hold of our emotions, our beliefs, and that deep-down desire we all have to shape the world around us. His words are the perfect kickoff for our journey.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start way back at the beginning, with magic's ancient roots. Then, we'll look at that critical moment when it went from being a miracle to being heresy. After that, we'll peek into the secret societies that kept it alive, explore its big modern comeback, and finally, see how magic has a hold on us in pop culture today.
Okay, let's start in a world that was just full of uncertainty. For early humans, magic wasn't superstition. You gotta understand, it was basically a technology. It was their genuine attempt to understand, to influence, and yeah, to control a really dangerous and unpredictable world. What's just mind-blowing is that we might be looking at one of the very first magical acts ever. Deep inside the Lascaux caves in France, our ancestors painted these gorgeous images of animals. Now, the leading theory is that this wasn't just art for art's sake. By painting a successful hunt on the wall, they believed they could magically make it happen in the real world. It was a ritual, a way to impose their will on reality.
And magic wasn't just about getting food, it was about building society. Take a look at this, the Jericho skull. It's a real human skull that's been carefully plastered over and decorated to look like a face again. This was most likely part of an ancestor cult, a shared ritual that helped glue these early communities together through a common belief in the afterlife and the power of those who came before them.
And as societies grew into these huge civilizations, like in Mesopotamia, magic became part of public life, even architecture. You'd see palaces guarded by these massive statues of Lamassu, these divine winged creatures. They weren't just fancy decorations, they were magical guardians, put right at the doorways to literally block demons and chaos from getting into the world of the living.
Now, in ancient Egypt, magic was so fundamental they saw it as one of the forces of creation itself. They called it Heka, and they even made it into a god. I mean, this wasn't some fringe practice. Heka was the cosmic juice the gods used to make the universe, and it was the same power pharaohs and priests used to keep order on Earth. Magic was, quite literally, part of the fabric of reality. So for thousands of years, magic, religion, and what we now call science were all tangled up together. But as we head into the medieval period, a huge split starts to happen. Organized religion, Christianity in particular, starts drawing a really hard line in the sand, and it begins to repaint these ancient practices as something dark and sinister.
And this created a new, really dangerous reality. All of a sudden, a supernatural act was judged not by what happened, but by who did it. If a saint did it, it was a divine miracle from God. But if a village healer did the exact same thing, it was condemned as maleficum, evil work powered by the devil. This was all about control. The church was claiming a total monopoly on the supernatural.
This rebranding had terrifying consequences. What came next was the Great European Witch Craze. For more than 2 centuries, a wave of accusations, trials, and executions swept across the continent. And this wasn't just random paranoia. It was systemic persecution, backed by new laws and a religious belief that officially and legally connected magic to heresy against God.
The human cost of this war of ideas was just staggering. Historians figure that around 50,000 people, the vast majority of them women, were executed for witchcraft. It's a brutal number that shows the deadly result of redefining magic from a part of life into a pact with the devil.
But here's the thing. Magic didn't just vanish. After the witch trials and with the rise of scientific thinking, it just went underground. It became the secret hobby of scholars, intellectuals, and secret societies, and it transformed into something way more complex and ceremonial.
Yeah, this was not the folk magic of the villages anymore. This was ceremonial magic, a deeply intellectual pursuit. These practitioners used really complex rituals, a lot of them from ancient books, to summon and command supernatural beings. They made a big distinction between theurgy, which was calling on divine or angelic forces, and goetia, which, well, that dealt with the demonic side of things.
This whole new era of magic was guarded by secret brotherhoods, and maybe the most mysterious of them all were the Rosicrucians. They just kind of burst onto the scene in the 1600s with these anonymous pamphlets. They claimed they had access to ancient, secret wisdom, a mix of mysticism and alchemy that could bring on a whole new age of enlightenment for humanity.
Another hugely influential group, of course, was the Freemasons. They grew out of the old stonemason guilds from the Middle Ages and created this really complex system of symbols and rituals. They used the tools of their trade, like the square and compass, as metaphors in a philosophical search for universal truth, blending their craft with ethics and these really esoteric beliefs.
All of this stuff really culminates in the late 19th century with the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. This was, you could argue, the most influential magical society of the modern age. It basically took everything that came before it, Kabbalah, ceremonial magic, Rosicrucianism, tarot, and synthesized it all into one big, cohesive system for spiritual growth. Its members would pretty much go on to shape all of Western occultism in the 20th century.
And that brings us right into the modern era. The secretive, scholarly magic of the 19th century just exploded into public view, reweaving all these ancient threads into totally new spiritual movements that are still being practiced all over the world today.
Probably the best known of these is Wicca. It was founded back in the 1950s by a guy named Gerald Gardner, and he basically reclaimed the word witchcraft. It wasn't an accusation anymore, it was a modern, nature-based religion. It's centered on honoring both a god and a goddess. Its main rule is to harm none, and it celebrates the turning of the seasons. And it's grown from this tiny movement to an estimated 1.5 million practitioners just in the US.
But Wicca is just one path. Modern magic is incredibly diverse. You've got LaVeyan Satanism, which isn't devil worship at all. It's actually an atheistic philosophy about self-empowerment, started by Anton LaVey. And then you have something wild like chaos magic, which says belief itself is just a tool you can program. Its practitioners will use any symbols or systems that work for them to get what they want, without being tied down to one tradition. And technology has just completely changed the game. Information that was once hidden away in rare, handwritten spellbooks or grimoires is now available with a click of a button. Witches and magicians are forming global communities online, they're sharing spells on social media, and they're even doing group rituals live. The secrets just aren't secret anymore in the digital age. So this brings us to our final stop, how all of this complicated history gets reflected back at us in our stories. And the figure of the witch, especially, has gone through this amazing transformation from a terrifying monster into a powerful cultural hero. For a huge chunk of the 20th century, one character pretty much defined what a witch looked like to everybody, the Wicked Witch of the West. That green skin, the pointy hat, the cackle. This movie from 1939 created the visual shorthand for the evil hag, a stereotype that stuck around for generations. But look at how that image has changed. By the 60s, she's the charming suburban housewife in Bewitched, using her magic to subtly push back against a patriarchal world. Then in the 90s, she's a teenager finding empowerment and sisterhood. And today, the witch is often this complex, powerful, sometimes even dark figure who really embodies a lot of modern feminist ideas about resistance and taking back your own power. Which leaves us with one last big question. We've journeyed all the way from Stone Age rituals designed to control a hunt to these complex heroines on our streaming services. The tools, the symbols, they've all changed. But has that fundamental human desire for a little bit of power, for a connection to the unseen, for a way to shape our own story, has that ever really gone away?